Hi, I am Rachel, and this is Breathe at Home. This is going to be a reflection on pattern disruption. So, it is inspired by Doug Silsby, who is a presence based life coach. He has passed, but he did a whole bunch of work in terms of how do you tap into this present moment to experience the resourcefulness that exists around and within you from this present moment. And so this exercise is one that allows you to reflect on a moment that's happened in your past, a pattern that happened in response to a trigger, and gives you the invitation to slow down enough to start to see the steps that got you to your triggered response so that you can disrupt that pattern and start trying to do it differently in the future. So go ahead and get a piece of paper and a pen if you don't already have one. And I invite you to fold the paper, hot dog, and hamburger so that there's 4 quadrants, or just draw a crisscross so that you have those 4 quadrants. And at the top of the page, I want you to just think of a trigger that exists in your life that has happened recently and your response to that trigger. So if you've never done this before, I invite you to start small. Don't go for like the biggest trigger that causes the biggest emotional response within you. Maybe just think of one that is one that you can feel the emotion but not get totally pulled too far off center. And if you've played with triggers before or you feel like going for it, just allow whichever trigger has shown up for you today to be the one that you use and see where you get with it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So think of that trigger that you have experienced recently or in the past, or maybe a trigger that is consistently coming up, and the response that you typically have. And I just want you to write that at the top of your sheet, leaving space in the 4 quadrants for some additional reflections. And as you're writing that, I just want to give the invitation that this is going to be about a 10-minute reflection. And at any point in the process that you need to pause and give yourself more time, feel free to do that. I just wanted to create something that you could do in a shorter period of time if you kind of wanted to just work through something quickly and see what you could get from it. So go ahead and write that trigger and what your response was, the one you want to work with today. All right. So now that you have a trigger that you want to play with a little bit and your trigger expression, in the first quadrant, I want you to allow yourself to go back to that point in time where you experienced the trigger and you responded or you reacted. And I want you to think about the sensations that were in your body right before it happened. So see if you need to close your eyes, see if you can go back to that moment in time. Our body actually stores our memories in our body. And so go back to that experience and see if you can notice what body sensations were present right before or a little bit before that trigger expression actually happened. So maybe you got a tightness in your throat, maybe sensations in the stomach, maybe you got the chills, maybe your eyes blurred. Whatever is there, allow yourself to just free flow right. Capture what body felt sensations existed right before the expression of the trigger response in the first quadrant. And if you're flowing with those sensations, maybe invite yourself to think about if you were going to describe those body felt sensations as a visual or as some sort of movement. What kind of movement exists? See if you can visualize the sensation and put a little bit more detail to it. So if it is, I'm just making it up. If there's a tingling in your elbow, is it a vibration, almost like you'd hit a pitchfork or like a tuning fork? Or is it more like a vibration, like, low rumble, like an earthquake? See if you can really qualify the sensation a little bit. And if you're not kind of getting anything, I encourage you again to just close your eyes, place your hand on your heart, your left hand on your heart. Take a few deep breaths into your belly and think back to that triggered moment and your response. And literally any sensations that come up in your body, even as you replay that trigger, just write those down for today. So if you need more time in this quadrant, feel free to pause. Otherwise, we will move on. In the second quadrant, I want you to, again, stay with this trigger response and the moments right before it. And I want you to think about what things were in your experience. Maybe they were thoughts, maybe they were ideas, maybe they were beliefs. What did you say to yourself, or what did you tell yourself that gave you permission to act out as you did? That enabled you to feel warranted in your response to the trigger. So I'll read that again. What did you tell yourself that gave you permission to act out as you did and enabled you to feel warranted in your response? So what in your experience did you tell yourself, or did you feel gave you permission, like, I'm allowed to respond to this way because why? So go ahead and finish that prompt, answer that question. And again, allowing and also remembering triggers can bring up judgment. So know that you are being super courageous right now by giving yourself the space to shine a light on who you are and how your system works. And today is not a place to criticize or belittle or judge. And if you do notice judgment, just acknowledge it for what it is, and then remind yourself, this is a time for me to get to know myself better, to better understand myself, and it's okay. Literally everybody gets triggered at some point, a lot of times in their lives, and it is very, very normal to wish that we had handled things differently. And you're here today because you want to give yourself that chance. So again, the questions for quadrant 2 are, what did you tell yourself that gave you permission to act out as you did in your trigger expression and enabled you to feel warranted in your response to that trigger? If you're feeling stuck at all, I encourage you to just allow the first thing that you hear to be the thing that you write on the page, and not to worry too much about trying to sound right or trying to figure it out or trying to make it make sense. Just allow what you hear or what comes up to be the thing that you write down, knowing that this is a process, this is a practice. And the more that you get into this practice of reflecting and observing and shining light on who you are and how you behave and how you show up, the more you might start to be able to connect some dots and be like, oh, I always tend to tell this to myself, or some iteration of this. What's there? What do I want to do with that? So this is just as much a practice of being able to just trust in the first response and go with it and see where that leads you. So if you need more time, go ahead and pause. It's important to give yourself the time that you need with each of these. And it's important to recognize when you maybe need to take a break and to give yourself some self-compassion, kindness, and love. So just remember that that it's okay if you need that. And so we have identified a trigger that we really want to learn more about and our response to that trigger. We've looked at what body sensations exist right before the trigger expression happens. We've also looked at what types of thoughts and ideas start to show up that give us permission to really go for the behavior that we, in hindsight, maybe didn't want to take. So now in the third quadrant is an invitation for forgiveness, self-forgiveness. So in this quadrant, I want you to write down anything that you need or needed to hear around forgiveness, for how you responded, for how maybe you've judged yourself, any aspects that you recognize, I was maybe a little harsh on myself. Where can you invite a sense of forgiveness around who you think you should have been or how you think you should have behaved? Because at the end of the day, you did the best that you could with the information that you had. So give yourself a little bit of time in this quadrant to really write down what it is that you needed to hear or need to hear today in order to forgive yourself. Or maybe it's something that you need to hear yourself say. So as you write these things down, maybe try saying it to yourself and see what that feels like with a calm and soothing voice. And this forgiveness practice may bring up some emotions for you. And so I invite you to just allow yourself to fully feel whatever comes up, knowing that if nothing overly emotional is coming up, that's all right as well. Allow yourself to be where you are and to let whatever is coming up to flow through you. A lot of times we can hold on tightly, thinking that, we should or shouldn't feel or experience things certain ways. And I invite you to use this space as a safe space to let yourself feel and let your body respond to your forgiveness. And we're going to move on to the last quadrant. In this quadrant, I just want you to take in the bigger picture view of some new insights and awarenesses that you've uncovered for yourself today around your trigger expression and what happens right before it within you that enables you to react. And I just want you to think about in the future as you move forward with this trigger, what do you want to do differently? And how do you want to do it differently? Now that you have this new information, what thing do you want to practice different or commit to yourself? And it could be as simple as just paying attention and doing more of these reflections to start to notice. Or it could be recognize when I have the tingling in my elbow and inviting myself to take a pause. So it could be the gamut. There's no right or wrong here. This is all an experiment as you learn how to recognize the patterns that exist within you and figure out ways to disrupt it or open up the experience to learn more insights and awarenesses that exist for you so that you can actually better understand yourself and do it differently. So in the fourth quadrant today, and again, kind of just allow it. Don't feel like you got to get it right. What feels like a step, not that you think you should do, but what's something that you want to do differently that feels true to you with this situation? So awareness is one of the first steps to all this. And sometimes it's hard to know where we can gain new awarenesses. And a lot of times we're constantly in our heads trying to solve what can I do, but how could I do it better? And there's a whole bunch of information below our neck. Our body, our soma, has a ton of wisdom and insight. Our experiences are stored as memories in our body. And when we can give ourselves a new inroad to an awareness through our body, what was the physical sensation there? What was happening that enabled me to do this? What was I telling myself? Now we can start to recognize before the expression of the trigger happens, oh my gosh, I know where this goes from here. And you might not get it right away. It takes practice. I still get triggered all the time. And the more you can pay attention and reflect and have a curious mind and approach it with a sense of love and curiosity for who you are, the more you can start to slow down enough and notice like, oh, that tends to lead to this. What do I want to do about that? Or let me examine what's happening. And this can be not just with our triggers. It can be pretty much with anything. Starting to notice our felt sense experience, our physical experience as a way to understand the entirety of our experience. There is a lot of research around the fact that way before a thought comes, our body is having felt sense experiences. And so if we can slow down enough to pay attention to the language of our body and get more literate in our physical experience, that's a whole another bout of information that we have at our fingertips that we can play with. So I hope this was fun for you. I know sometimes this can open up some vulnerability. If that was the case, please make sure that you practice some self-love and compassion today. If you have a support structure around you, reach out as needed. Otherwise, this is meant to be objective and observer, and it can sometimes bring up emotions, so it's okay if it did. So thank you for playing with me, and it is an honor to guide you through this reflection today. I am Rachel, and this is Breathe at Home.